Hey, everybody, it's Dave here and Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers, been doing this stuff for over 2 decades apiece. And what is this stuff? It's writing and speaking publicly about your Minnesota Vikings for over 2 decades, like I said. Anyways, now I want to welcome you back to another episode of Two Old Bloggers with Darren and me, Dave. I'm Dave, and that's Darren. We're your hosts. So much for reading the script. Today's episode is set to be an exciting episode where we explore 3 themes, as usual, about your Vikings and what they've done over the week. First, we'll discuss the playoff positioning and the Vikings come back into contention after a shaky season start. We'll examine the reasons for their success and predict their chances of keeping their playoff spot. Next, after that, we'll focus on Brian Flores' impact on the Vikings defense and how it contributed to improve their performance. We'll conclude the episode by previewing the eagerly awaited Vikings versus Saints game. So get ready. We're about to kick this off. But first, on this Veterans Day in the U.S., and as many around the world celebrate Remembrance or Armistice Day, we want to take a moment to express our deepest gratitude to all veterans in our audience and to all around the world. Your sacrifices, courage, and dedication to protect our freedoms are not forgotten, and we can't thank you enough. The service transcends boundaries, connecting all of us in our shared appreciation of the peace and security we all enjoy. To all who have served, we salute you. Thanks. Now for Two Old Bloggers. Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. And we're back. This is Dave, and that's Darren over there. How are things in the Great White North, Darren?
They're pretty good, Dave. Daughter's coming home today from it's reading week. She's back from college. We call it university here in Canada. So she's back. The kids get 2 reading weeks now, Dave. They only used to get 1 when I was going to school. It was in February, and now you get 2, November and February. I don't know what's happening in the world.
Is reading week some sort of holiday break?
Yeah, it's like
okay.
You're supposed to be studying, but of course we know that
it's like spring break, right? Here in the States. Yeah, let's go study.
Yeah.
This is how we consume a pitcher of beer. Watch.
Beach. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's good. You and your wife will love seeing her over that time period. See how much she's gotten brainwashed between when you dumped her off and now, and it'll be a good thing.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for your intro, thanking all the veterans. David, my grandfather, Warren Cope, he was in the Canadian Navy in World War II, and something that he talked quite a bit about. He was a little bit different, like a lot of veterans don't like to talk about those days. He did like to talk about them, so I got a lot of stories. I don't know if I got the real bad ones, but he did have lots of stories, and Remembrance Day here in Canada was always a big day for him.
And it should be, and it's a big day around the world. It used to be, especially in Europe, because of it started and because of World War I. World War I ended on November 11th, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Was the Armistice Day to end World War I. In World War I, there's so many millions of men that lost their lives in that war. And I mean, it wiped out all the men in cities, certain cities, because they go off to fight and then they'd lose their lives and whatever. And it's just that since then we've done that with World War II and any other war after that. And hopefully, in hopes that we learn from it. Unfortunately, it looks like our species is not good at learning from it, and we're heading that direction again. And that's unfortunate because I wish they would learn from it, because it's not the most wonderful of things to experience. And I give my hat tip to everybody that's partaken, whether either voluntary, like most me and my friends, or via conscription/draft. Back in the day, it wasn't easy. Life wasn't easy being a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, probably even a guardian now, or a coastie. It doesn't matter. It's all sacrificing for your country, and that's a really big deal. I do want to thank everybody that's here today. We have Patrick Harms, Gary Olson, Travis Floyd, My Wordless Opinion, the wonderful and beautiful Miss Mary. Let's see. We have Raymond. Who else have shown up? Delton is here. Great to see you all. Yogi. I love when Yogi pops by. Who else has hopped in? I am so far behind on the comments, but that's all right. Jason, good to see you here as well, my friend. Good to see you. Aaron, hey, what do you think of this cool weather, brother? And everybody else that's here, that is a good thing. We appreciate it. And hey, it's time to get this thing started. We do that with theme 1. Theme 1 today, I already apologize. I'm sorry, folks, but I'm a little light on graphics. Theme 1, playoffs.
Yeah, who would have thunk it, Dave? Back on this show when the Vikings started 0-2 and then 0-3 the following week, we hauled out the stats, right, Dave? How the very grim, bleak stats on teams that start the year 0-2 and 0-3 like the Vikings did, and how poor their playoff chances were. And on one of those shows, probably both of those shows, I think I more or less said, well, season's over. Start prepping for the draft, and it's not it is not going to end well here for the Vikings. And I don't regret saying that at the time, because the stats are pretty definitive, and also just what I was seeing week to week with the team, how they were playing, giving up giving turnovers away like they were candy. I just didn't really feel that they could stack the wins. Enough wins to get back into playoff contention. Well, 6 weeks later, the Vikings are now 5-4 and very much in playoff contention. They actually have, as we all know, the 7th playoff seed right now, if the season ended today, which it does not.
Yes, we still have quite a few games left.
But they're right in the thick of it. And compared to 6 weeks ago, really, if you right now, I think that the playoffs and the Vikings' chances of making the playoffs are actually, I think, fairly positive. And we're going to get into a few reasons why that's the case. The first one is fortunately for us, is the pretty mediocre NFC. And the people that are the teams that are chasing the Vikings right now, you've got Atlanta and Washington, the Washington Commies, who are 4-5, and then below them, that team from Wisconsin and the Tampa Bay Buccos, who are 3-5. You look at those teams, even with the Vikings without Kirk Cousins, they're not better than us. So even without Kirk Cousins and with Josh Dobbs or whoever the hell is going to quarterback for us, those teams are not better than us. And so that's a big one. And what also helps is that, again, the Commies and the Falcons are a game behind us right now in the win-loss column. That team from Wisconsin and the Bucs are 2 games behind us in the win column. And if you look at the schedules of those teams, Dave, they've got fairly tough schedules. I think that make it a little bit difficult to see them winning, the 5, 6, 4, 5, 6 games they're going to need over the next 8 or 9 games to overtake the Vikings. I'm just looking at Washington. They've got 8 games left. They still have to play Philly, Miami, Dallas, and the 49ers at home. And they've even got a Christmas Eve game on the road against the Jets, which doesn't sound too tough, except Aaron Rodgers might be back then.
And we know he didn't hurt his arm, so.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
And he'll want to prove everything to everybody. So, yeah, if he's back, watch out.
And even if he wasn't back, Josh Wilson is pretty brutal sometimes, but the Jets defense is still legit, and they can sometimes win games all on their own, which they've done this year already. We would take a look at the Bucs schedule. They've still got the Saints to play, who are, I think, a pretty tough team, and we're going to see that tomorrow. The 49ers, they got to play the Jaguars. They also play the Falcons and that team from Wisconsin, two of the other teams chasing the Vikings. And so in that case, whichever team loses there, that helps the Vikings, So, and you look at even the teams ahead of the Vikings, Dave, for the other 2 wildcard spots, they're vulnerable too if you look at their schedule. Take the 5-3 Cowboys. They do play the Giants, Panthers, and the Commies the next 3 games. Those should be 3 wins for them. But then they got to play Philly, Buffalo, Miami, Seattle, and the Lions in 5 of their last 6 games. That's a pretty tough schedule.
That is a tough schedule.
Look at the 5-3 Seahawks. 6 of their last 7 games are against San Francisco twice, Dallas, Philly, and then they play the Titans on the road. And the Titans can be sticky, especially now they got Will Levis in there. He's doing okay. And then they get the Steelers at home, and the Steelers are not a great team, but they can be sticky too, especially with their defense. So if either Dallas or Seattle really falter in the second half of the season and lose like 3 or 4 games, maybe even 5, they really open the door for the Vikings to leapfrog them in the playoff race. And that's important if the Vikings take care of business. Another reason I think the Vikings playoff aspirations, they should have aspirations right now, is again their schedule compared to the other teams. It's not super difficult over the final 8 games. They got New Orleans tomorrow, Denver on the road, Bears at home, Las Vegas on the road, who are in a free fall. They get that team from Wisconsin at home. Now they got to play Detroit twice. And they got to play the Bengals, surging Bengals on the road. So those will be tough wins for them. But that's still a schedule when you compare it to some of the other teams we've talked about that are chasing them or that they're chasing. There's a lot of winnable games there for the Vikings, I think. Another reason that I think that the Vikings are in pretty good playoff position right now is you look at their conference record. They're currently 5-2 against the NFC, which is 4th best in the conference right now. And other than head-to-head results,
best in the conference?
I think 4th best. Is it second?
Second, only behind Philly when it comes to conference record.
Right. Okay. Well, stand corrected.
That's the second tiebreaker. First tiebreaker is obviously head-to-head.
Head-to-head.
Second one is conference, and we are only at half a game behind Philly at the moment.
And so that's a big one. There, the tiebreaker and the conference record. As I said, another thing that's I think really important is going to help the Vikings with their playoff push is, and we're going to get into this a bit later, is the Brian Flores and the Vikings defense, which has been playing well, getting better lately, and they have been keeping the Vikings in pretty much every game they played this year, and. Defense travels, right, Dave?
Yes, it does.
It doesn't matter what kind of the conditions are, what the field conditions are, what the weather is like. If you got a good defense, you are always in a position to win a game. And right now, Brian Flores has got that defense playing that way. That's a big plus. And the final thing is that Justin Jefferson is going to come back. Probably not this weekend. Possibly not next weekend. We'll see how things go, but in the next 21 days.
But it could be possibly this weekend. We won't know until Sunday.
We won't know, but the comments coming from Kevin O'Connell this week and Jefferson himself were indicating that's probably not going to happen.
I suspect the comments from Kevin O'Connell is they're trying to slow him down. right? And then JJ was just espousing the talking points.
Which is good. Different than the head coach. That just gets to too much chatter. But eventually, JJ in the next 21 days is coming back, and that's going to be a big boost to the Vikings offense. Whether even if Josh Dobbs is our quarterback, or it's Jaron Hall, or it's Nick Mullins, or somebody other than Kirk Cousins. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about how the Vikings do. Now, again, a lot of football to play. 8 games there's a lot could happen. We don't know what's going to happen, and really, David, it's going to come down to, I think, a lot is what kind of quarterbacking do we get? Competent quarterbacking play in those final 8 games from Josh Dobbs, it looks like,
or if not, Jaron Hall,
or Jaron Hall. If we get competent quarterback play, then that's going to even enhance our playoff position and aspirations even more. But hey, after me counting the Vikings out, quite a while ago. and now with the way they have played, big win last week, it's time for me to count them in. Because
I got you. Now, everybody's seen this graphic this week. I'm assuming this came out from PFF, and it says our chance to go to playoffs are 74% if we win this game, down to 41% if we lose it. And they are one of a handful-ish of people that do this, doing the measurements of where it moves. They are different. Some are tighter, some are, looser, and how they look at it is different. But this is pretty close. Now, the one thing you warned me when I brought this and showed this to you was, even if they lose, doesn't mean they're out.
That's right. Because you've won 4 games in a row and 5 of your last 6, that's surprising as some of them were. That's given the Vikings a bit of breathing room, at least tomorrow, that heaven forbid that they lose, they would still probably be in the 7th position, depending. You have to see how it goes, but they have given themselves a little bit of breathing room. As opposed to if they were 4-5 or 3-5, then you're in quite a bit of trouble. You got to keep on winning. You got to win a lot of games in a row. We have accomplished that by stacking a lot of wins together right now, and it's given us a chance where if we slip up tomorrow a little bit and don't win that game like we hope that we do, it's still not a season ender for the Vikings.
Yeah, but we're gonna win tomorrow.
Ooh, it'd be beautiful. It'd be beautiful.
No, but I think the Vikings are set up rather nicely to get into the playoffs. And trying to remember who said it. I think it was Clifford. Hey, Doc Proto, good to see you here. And of course, Harmsy and Aaron. The Vikings can still win the division.
Yes.
All they got to do is keep up with Detroit and then beat Detroit on those 2 games. That's going to be tough. Now, as I was talking to the Saints guys this week on a couple different shows, I hopped on theirs and they hopped on mine. And if you haven't listened, go over and listen. They're podcast only. Go over to Vikings First and SKOL podcasts on any of your favorite aggregators. We're on all of them, and you can find those. That we finish up. The Saints have a relatively easy rest of their schedule too. So they should win the NFC South. Unless they absolutely collapse, they should. We know Detroit's schedule. It's easier than ours. And then we have our schedule, which is like 30th on the easiest scale. We're way past the difficulty stage, except for a pair of teams that we play. And those teams will be Cincinnati, who's resurging, and then, of course, Detroit twice. And then hopefully the Packers in between are in full, hey, let's give it up. Where it's our tea time. We're heading, mode, which I fully expect them to be by then. So we shall see. We could still pull out the division. And if we do that, we could possibly be as high as the 2nd seed, maybe even the 1st. The Saints guys think that they could possibly get to the 2nd seed or And they picked Detroit to be the first because they think Philly's got a tough schedule. Philly plays a lot of people that's going to beat up on them, whether it be Dallas, et cetera, like you went over. They may fall because they go, there's no way, they're not an 8-1 team. And we've all watched them. They've won some close games, including ours. Now, ours wasn't that close. We got our points in garbage time, it seemed like. But our defense wasn't playing as well back then. There's a big difference there. And who knows how this will turn out. Hopefully, as I told them, this will just be one of those magical seasons. We've had so many injuries, and we've all counted ourselves out, especially after starting 0-3, like you said, the rough start. And we're talking about scouting quarterbacks of the future. Well, who knows? This could be 2017. This could be even better than that. Dobbs comes in. Dobbs, the perennial backup quarterback. He's bounced around. He's been on 7 teams for a reason. I've heard that this week. Well, he can come in and suddenly KOC's the quarterback whisperer, whispering in his ear, you want to look out for the corner in the flat. And his career takes off.
Hawkinson's going that way.
Exactly. It could be. We don't know. So
Josh.
So it could be almost anything like that. So we'll find out. And hey, hope it is. Well, that brings us to theme 2. Half of the equation, not offense. We're flipping over to defense.
We are.
And Brian Flores.
The maestro.
The maestro. Yeah, it's a good nickname for him. I like that. We're going to use that from now on.
Mary was asking what Michael Thomas did to get arrested, and I'm not sure if somebody else mentioned it, but it was simple battery he's been arrested with. So he roughed up a construction worker who was working by his house. He's had a dispute with this construction company that's been parking outside by his house. I don't know what Mike Thomas is up to, but hey, if it's a street, public street, they can park wherever the fuck they want.
That's right. Oh, that's not going to go over well with the NFL.
No, it isn't. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll get into that in the third theme. But yeah, talking Brian Flores, Vikings defense here, Dave. This week, Kevin O'Connell has gotten a lot of love about the coaching job that he did last week in Atlanta with Josh Dobbs. And deservedly so. I don't know how the hell he pulled off what he did. Happy that he did it, but he deserves everything that he got, all the kudos. But I don't want to forget about Brian Flores, and I wonder if Brian Flores could be considered the MVC of the NFL this year, Dave. Which is, the most valuable coach,
or at least most valuable coordinator.
Yeah, you know when you look at last year, with the Vikings, when he got brought on and we hired him, the hope was that he'd turn with his aggressive styles, that he'd turn the Vikings defense from the huge liability that it was last year under Ed Donatel into something that helped the Vikings win games. Because the defense last year almost single-handedly is the reason why the Vikings were a one-and-done team in the playoffs. And so
Patrick Harms, he tells it like it is.
Yes. And it wasn't looking, and that is what has happened, Dave. If you're from the outside looking in, though, you'd probably be like, not people who don't follow the Vikings probably wouldn't be all that impressed with what we've done as far as our stats go, just trying to look them up. But I think we're 17th in points allowed right now, 14th in yards allowed throughout the season. We're tied for the league, 13th in the league in sacks with 24 sacks, 19th in red zone defense. DVOA has us ranked 10th as the 10th ranked defense, so that's pretty good. So the Vikings aren't playing at a level like the Cleveland Browns or the Ravens defense is this year. But compared to how they leaked yardage and points especially as the season went on under Donatel last year, and they ranked in the bottom 5 in the league in just about all of those categories that I just mentioned. It's pretty clear, I think, that Brian Flores and his system and his game plans have had a big positive impact on our defense. And they've been getting better as the season has progressed. Like during our 4-game winning streak here, the Vikings, and you showed some of these stats online this week, Dave, to a few of the people who are on the show now. But that the Vikings are right now, the 7th ranked scoring defense in that 4-game win streak. They've given up just 17 points a game. And they rank 3rd in the league right now during the win streak in defensive efficiency and defensive expected points added. So that's really good. And we also have to
great compared to where we were. I'm glad I'm not creating pictures of this man anymore.
Except when we're referring to him in the past tense.
Yeah, then I pull out old ones. That's it.
But we have to consider, Dave, that Flores is doing all this even though the offense the whole season has been putting the defense in disadvantaged situations because we've been turning the ball over so much. And we saw that even last week against Atlanta, right? Even with Dobbs coming in there, the safety, and then the 2 fumbles, and one that ended up getting returned to just inside the 2-yard line, and the Vikings hold them to 2 field goals. That's been happening all year, and Brian Flores' defense has still been rising above it. So they're getting it done. They're getting better. They seem to be improving, and they got to keep doing that. And so I think the question is, like, how has Flores done it? And I've got a few theories myself. And he's blitzing a lot. That's a big difference from Ed Donatel. Over 40% of the time so far this year. Now, the thing about that is that the blitzing hasn't worked like we kind of expected it to, in that the Vikings, according to PFF, are 29th in defensive pressure. So the blitzes aren't getting home as much as we would like or we would have expected. But I still think that it's an effective thing, an effective tactic that Brian Flores is using. And I'll tell you why. Because I think that the constant blitzing or the threat of the blitz, and with Flores walking down 7 and 8 guys into the box all the time, is I think that wears on an offense throughout the game. They're just like, my God, what's he going to do now? Who's coming? Where are they coming from? Are they going to rush 3? Are they rushing 4? Where are they rushing those guys from? It's just constant mind, messing with your mind, messing with the quarterback's mind, messing with the offensive coordinator's mind. It's just very mentally taxing for that offense, and I think that wears on them. I think the other thing about that is that, Dave, offenses during the year or during the week, in their 3 days that they have to practice, I think they're spending so much time working on how they're going to protect against the Flores blitzes that they're not spending as much time on their own offense and how they're going to execute the plays and how they're going to attack the defense. Sometimes it's not so much the play that you call, Dave, but it's how you execute that play call. And if you're spending so much time just worried about what's Flores going to do, how are we going to block it up, but you're not worrying about, okay, how are we going to execute that dagger route so that we exploit that. I think he's really
it's a big deal. And whether he's lining up 7, 8, 9 guys on the line, the offensive line is sitting there and they've got to figure out their blocking. If the center is calling it, or the quarterback's got to call it and he's got to figure out his blocking. And if they've got that many people on, it's generally 5-0, but which meaning man on man. You got 5 offensive linemen. They're going to take 5 guys per their rules, generally the guys in front of them. And then if you've got a running back in the back, who's he picking up? And that depends on the play. Which side is he going to? Is the defense shifted or is the offensive line shifted? How that works to slide across, how they're shading it, which direction the play is going. All this stuff figures in, and they've got to figure it out as they come to the ball. And as people start moving around, they've got to make sure they've got it right. And then the quarterback's sitting there going, shit, I've got 8 or 9 guys up there. There's going to be an unblocked rusher. Where do I go? What do I do? And it's not just that this happens and they get those blitzes. And last week was the least amount of time at 50% blitzing. and he's gone as high, I think, as almost 80% in one of the games. But it's that wears on the offense when they're trying to figure it out play after play after play after play after play. And they're going, oh my God. And then when he puts 8 to 9 guys up on the line and everybody drops back except for 3, obviously one of them, Daniil Hunter, that's rushing, and they're like, that was Heineke last week at times. He was like, holy shit, and he starts seeing ghosts, right? And he thinks he's got 8 guys coming at him. He's only got 3, and he's looking in the defensive backfield and going, holy fuck, there's 20 of them back there. How am I supposed to complete a pass? That's the whole purpose of this offense. It's to absolutely mind bleep the quarterback and the offensive line, and it wears them out. It's a stressor. Right? We talk about in the military certain things we did, Northern Survival School, escape and evade, whatever. And you're purposely put under stressors to make you break. Well, this is Brian Flores' way of doing that. He puts offenses under stress, and they have to try to figure it out. And it's causing problems. And the big, rise in how well the defense is playing, because our guys are getting it. They're getting the communication. They know what they're doing. Everything. They're becoming offensive. They're not just reacting. They're messing with the offensive mind. And it's a wonderful thing.
It is. James Morgan was saying that we gave up 28 points to an Atlanta backup, which is not exactly true. We gave up 26. 2 points was on a safety, not on the defense. They also got 2 field goals on the 2 Dobbs fumbles, one which was at the 2-yard line, which Atlanta should be punching in for a TD like nobody's business. We got completely stuffed. And so the defense saved our offense's ass again on those 2 plays. I would say, really, the Vikings defense really only, if they hadn't have had those, and those turnovers did happen, you can't take them away. But considering where they were in the field, if that doesn't happen, if Atlanta was forced to drive, I don't know, we probably would only gave up 20 points in that game, maybe 23 at the most. So, what the position the offense puts in you sometimes matters, like what the point total is. I think the blitzing, again, it's a big part of what Flores does, and I think it's been effective, even if it's not leading to a whole ton of sacks. I think another reason why I think this defense is better than Donatell's is just the tackling has improved a lot. And if you're in this league where the short passing game and yards after the catch is such a big part of modern day offenses, you've got to be able to tackle. You got to be able to beat blocks, and you're not going to get to the quarterback because he's going to get rid of it in under 2 seconds. So, but the ball's not going to go very far down the field. So there's going to be a guy that you got to tackle more often than not. A lot more often than not, Brian Flores' players are the first guy who gets to the ball carrier is taking him down. And if they don't take him down, he's got plenty of help coming, soon enough. So you're not getting as many of those 5-6 yards extra after the ball carrier gets a touch. And I think that's been a huge, huge reason why we're minimizing the explosives and the chunk plays off of that, the short passing game, and keeping offenses, forcing them to grind out long drives. They have done it at times, but I think it's important because last year under Donatell, there was a lot of times there was a lot of green grass after a guy would catch a short pass and they just keep running, miss a tackle. The next thing you know, what should have been a 5-yard gain was a 25-yard gain. Happened all the time. I think that's important. The Vikings, and I think, other thing that's important is you got to have players make plays, Dave. And the Vikings did, they did make substantial changes at certain parts of the defense. Some of it was, salary cap related. Some of it was we wanted to get better. Like we completely revamped the secondary. Patrick Peterson, Duke Shelley, and Shannon Sullivan, we let them go in free agency. We brought in Byron Murphy Jr. in free agency and then gave it Caleb Evans the starting job. And then we've used mostly rookie Mekhi Blackman as the third cornerback. And we brought in Marcus Davenport, replaced Zadarius Smith with Marcus Davenport. We replaced Eric Kendricks, ended up with Ivan Pace Jr. Now, some of those moves, Byron Murphy Jr. has not really been effective, although he had a very good game last week against Atlanta, but his PFF grades are very low. Excuse me. And I think the eye test says that he's been so-so this year. Davenport, of course, has been injured all the time, so he hasn't really helped. The Vikings
Which the
aren't getting.
Saints guys laughed at
Yeah.
during this week. How do you like
Yeah.
that $8 million per sack you guys just bought?
Yes. Sometimes you got to take the ribbing. If it's true, what can you do about it?
Uh-huh.
But um, we haven't gotten much from some of the free agent signings we made defensively, but we're getting play from guys that didn't play at that level last year under Flores. Jordan Hicks, can't get him off the field, playing fantastic this year.
Yeah.
We talked about,
and for an older player, he's having a resurgence.
He is. We talked a few weeks ago about Josh Metellus, who Flores is using in that hybrid linebacker, safety, nickel, corner role, and he's really thrived. Daniil Hunter has been playing like we expected, but just a great closer on sacks. Like when he has an opportunity to get a sack, the quarterback does not get more often not.
Does not escape.
Does not escape the grips of Daniil Hunter. And then who would I think Harrison Phillips is doing a great job with penetrating, being a great run stuffer, controlling the line of scrimmage, using up blockers, and he's playing a lot more than he did last year, and he's more effective than he was last year. And then Cam Bynum. How about Cam Bynum, Dave? The PFF's 5th ranked safety in the NFL, and I think that he's earned that. Now, he got noticed in the San Francisco game because he had that breakout game where he had the 2 interceptions late in the game to seal it. He was in on that fumble that Harrison Smith caused and then was recovered by Dean Lowry. But even that game, like Cam Bynum is a guy that he's been the solid, the solid silent type almost. Whereas Flores has got Metellus and Harrison Smith up at the line of scrimmage. He's sending those guys on blitzes all the time. He's got them nosy at the line of scrimmage. Bynum is the guy he keeps deep. He's the guy that he's the safety valve. And then Bynum is just like doing his job. He's making the tackles when he needs to, and he's been like really making great breaks on the ball of late and making some awesome plays on the ball, even if he doesn't get the interception. So, guys like Bynum, Hicks, Metellus, Harrison Phillips, Flores is getting play out of those guys that they are playing under him at a level that they did not play at last year, and that's helping this defense a lot.
Well, I think the tackling is so much improved over this year versus last year, even with some of the same players, and that's Flores's.
Yeah. Now, it hasn't all gone right, Dave. Like we're 26th, I think, in 3rd down efficiency, 22nd in 4th down efficiency. We're actually on a pace to have a little fewer turnovers than we did in 2022, although we picked up that pace quite considerably the past 4 or 5 games, so we might get there. But overall, I think the players enjoy playing on this defense. They like the attacking style of it. They're really starting to get a hang of it. And and I think that again they're getting better, and they need to get better because the Vikings play a lot of close games. We've got backup quarterbacks galore right now. We need a defense. At the beginning of the year, Dave, we talked about, man, if we could just get a middle of the pack, 15th, 16th ranked defense, some 14th ranked defense, something like that. The Vikings, with the offense we have, we could be a really good team. Well, the defense is there. Like we are that middle of the pack and getting better. And so really encouraging. Maybe by the end of the season, we're a top 10 defense, Dave. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season? Really?
That would be, nobody did. We were going to be happy if we got mid-pack, and that would be a huge jump from being 31st or 32nd, whichever metric you looked at last year. So it is awesome. Aaron talks about watching the Raiders culture. We're fortunate. Yes, we are. Our culture is a big deal in Minnesota, and it very much plays into it. George asks, what about Davenport? Davenport is the best edge rusher who's never healthy. That's what I feel about Davenport. I have no idea when he's coming off of IR. Their guess is as good as mine. I don't know what the extent of his injury was, but this is ridiculous. And all the Saints guys, even before the season, once we grabbed him, they started ribbing me, the ones that knew me. And I'm like, nah, injuries are flukish.
Here,
Nothing
Dave,
looks.
going to play all 17 games. This is the year it's going to happen.
Yeah, there's nothing related. I mean, they're all different. He's fine. And he looks so great in preseason. He goes, and he will at 2 games. 2. And he did great in those games. It's just,
yes.
That's what I feel about Davenport, George.
And all of this is great, Dave, with the job that Brian Flores has done, the way the defense has progressed, how it's gotten better, how it's been, like I said, like in the past 4 games, a top 10 scoring defense. I think that this isn't really a problem, but Flores is almost doing too good of a job because when you take a defense that was ranked 31st, 30th in the league in all kinds of different categories,
or 32nd, the bottom 3 spots, no matter what you were looking at.
Spots. And then you turn them into like they're 15th, they're 16th, they're 10th, and then the team is winning, and they're winning because of the defense. Well, people in the league notice that. So I would expect that if the Vikings defense keeps on playing the way it's playing or even gets better, that Brian Flores is going to get a lot of head coaching interest in the off season. And the only way that unless the NFL owners are still blackballing him because of his discrimination.
Well, I'm about to say, there's that issue there because of the lawsuit, and he pissed off a lot of people. Now, I'm also hoping that he says, no, I like it here in Minnesota. I'm going to do another year, get that under my, belt on my resume, not just have 1 year, and stick it out here in Minnesota. I like it here. And hopefully the Wilfs are going to be sweetening the pot and saying, hey, we want you to stay. Let's make you defensive coordinator and assistant head coach, right? Mm-hmm. That means he can't be stolen at that point because he's getting a pay raise. And then pay him almost as much as you do KOC, and that's fine by me. And I doubt KOC makes a lot for a head coach. I'll bet he's on the low end of the scale because the Wilfs are paying Mike Zimmer still through this season. But he may get a bump and then, keep it like $1 under his. And those two work as a team together. And this could develop into a longer-term relationship, I hope. I hope at least next year. Because if he's with us 2 years and then goes off and becomes a head coach, then we get the compensatory draft pick for him, the coach. Mm-hmm. But we don't get it if he leaves this year. And I'm hoping he stays. And I know most Vikings fans are too.
Well, who wouldn't? And perhaps this is where the culture you're talking about comes in too, whereas Flores says, man, like, I really like it here. I like just the whole way the culture is. I like the way the coaching staff works together. I like working under KOC. But I do feel that, again, the defense keeps on progressing, keeps on improving, or even if they just continue to play like they're playing, which is solid. If I were KOC, I'd be having my succession plan ready come February because I may need it.
You might want to have, if Flores is leaving, you might want to have Flores pick who's your protege, who's your Padawan that needs to take the next step that I can replace you with if he's leaving. That's the route I'd go. I wouldn't look under any other coaching tree. I know everybody's Fangio style. Let's go get Fangio style. We tried that. It worked out miserably. There's only 2 coaches that can do the Fangio style. Well, Fangio, and I'm trying to remember the other one. But that's it. Everybody else that tries it fails. So, go down the Flores tree.
Well, you got a defense that is thriving with a heavy blitz philosophy. Then I would think it makes sense you want somebody who's going to stick with that and expand on it and try to improve it and get, again, it's pretty impressive that on a defense that doesn't have a whole lot of stud top talent that Flores has been able to do what he's done with this defense.
Yes. And Sean says, Donachelle failed us, and I think we went 13-4 with that D is astounding. And it was. Nobody thought that was going to happen.
They looked great in the first game against that team from Wisconsin, and then it was all pretty much downhill from there.
Which earns its own little extra bit of grace anytime team goes in there and beats up on that team from Wisconsin. All right, that brings us to theme 3. This one we're talking about Vikings versus the Saints. Tomorrow, the Saints come to town. I'm sure they're there probably already today. And they meet up against your Vikings. As we start out, we're going to start out with the slideshow as normal. So you get to see all the good, funky stuff that's happening in the geek world. Foge, Fazio was this shit. Foge, back in the day, you betcha, Patrick. Back in the day. All right, when it comes to injury reports, the final injury reports that were published on Friday have for the Vikings, quarterback Darren Hall out. We expected that. He got knocked out. He's going to be in protocol. Now, it has defensive tackle Dean Lowry doubtful. Okay. I don't think that's a big deal. Wide receiver KJ Osborne is questionable. We all saw the hit he took last week, and he was knocked out cold. I mean, he was unconscious cold. However, when he got onto the cart, he looked clear as a bell at that point. Yeah. So he may transition through the protocol earlier than Darren Hall did. Now, also keep in mind, Darren Hall's a quarterback, and the NFL freaks out when quarterbacks have concussions, and they're guaranteed out minimum a week, generally. So that's what happens. Unless you're thrown on a protocol for something else, like you stumbled and they think you had it. No. He's going to be out. Brian Asamoah, questionable, maybe back, may not. I don't like not seeing Brian out there. He's had a injured, dinky, boo-boo season so far, and we didn't expect that. TJ is questionable, and we know he took a shot to the ribs. I'm assuming they're bruised, not broken, and he played through that. And if anybody who's had bruised ribs, it's painful. Gary Olson says JJ is out. Did they rule it out this afternoon, JJ, while I was working on prepping everything? Because on this, they have him as questionable. And questionable being that, they're going to decide. He's still on, technically, he's in his 21-day window to come back, so we weren't worried about it. But if he did get ruled out this afternoon, please let us know. Sean hopes TJ can handle the ribs issue. I think he probably can. As I told somebody, tight ends are tougher than wide receivers. But we'll see. JJ, like I said, entered the 21-day window. I think he'd push it if the coach allowed him. I don't think they're going to allow him.
And with them being 5-4 and having a little bit of grace, like we talked about with theme 1, kind of makes sense to see how long you can stretch keeping JJ out of there until the more time you can buy for yourself and for his hamstring, I think the better.
And Harmsy says he was officially ruled out this morning, so he will be out. Aaron says questionable. I don't know. Chris Reed should be coming up as well. That's he's in his 21-day window. He's supposedly looking good. I expect him probably to play, but to be active, but I don't know that. Harm said he got the notification this morning. That's good. Now, there are at least one player on this list that was on the list last week and out last week that is not on this list. Who is that?
It's Darrisaw.
Christian Darrisaw, baby. Our big, nasty-ass left tackle is going to be back, which is wonderful. Because from talking to the Saints boys this week, our offensive line should have a day tomorrow. And I hope they do. I really, really hope they do. And I hope they take out their frustration on the Saints defensive line. That would be nice to see. I like abuse when it comes to offensive line versus the opponent defensive line. I very much do. It warms my heart. Now we get to the Saints. They have running back Kendre Miller out. He's already ruled out. Saints boys on Dome Patrol were a little upset over that because he's been a good part of that running back committee down there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Sean says Reed's important because Ezra's gone. That is 100% correct. Sean says ready for some pancake blocks against 4-man front. Me too, buddy. Me too. Defensive end Isaiah Foskey is out as well, and fullback Adam. I got my camera in the way. That's why I'm moving. Prentice. That's easy word. Why?
Nobody of any importance.
Right. Nobody of any importance. These guys, none of these guys are starters. They're backups. Rotation. Except.
Michael Thomas play.
But that's the injury report. As it reported Friday, we've got updates from the folks in the crowd, and we appreciate that very, very much. And JJ being ruled out, that's fine. Let him. I'm cool with that. That's very fine. Now, they do have a good defensive secondary, the Saints, and we'll get into that. But JJ getting that extra week on that hammy to make sure it's 100%, by all means, because you don't want to re-aggravate it and then have it linger the rest of the season. Now, that's a lot of time for that one slide. Pardon me, one slide. Always we go to quarterbacks. Who's the better quarterback? Because generally the better quarterback wins 80% of the time. Yes, we know the quarterback doesn't play the other quarterback. He plays the opposing defense, not that, but it always works out. Quarterback versus quarterback, the better one usually wins 80% of the time. And in this case, there's a big difference. Joshua Dobbs, because he's that perennial backup, is got a power ranking of 23rd, which is not bad for a, quote, backup quarterback. Considering there's 32 starting quarterbacks in the league, plus all the backups, being ranked 23rd isn't bad at all. Derek Carr is 12th. Now, Derek Carr is very much a Jekyll and Hyde type of quarterback, and we'll get into that shortly. Yes, George, you gotta love the big round bellies. All right, we get into the details of the quarterbacks. Josh Dobbs has a PFF rating of 66, whereas Derek Carr's is slightly above. And then you get into all the specifics: clean passer rating, under pressure passer rating, big time throw, yada, yada, all the way down. And you can see that Derek Carr is slightly, just an itty bitty bit, ahead of Josh Dobbs on most of those.
Yes.
Dobbs is a little bit better under pressure. Well, that's cool, because you want a quarterback that's good under pressure. That's the PFF side of things. When you get to the DVOA side of things, you got to remember on DVOA, 0 is average. And they go plus above and minus below. They have Josh Dobbs below average compared to the rest of the league. They have, whereas they have Derek Carr above average. And when you get to DVOA as versus average, the bottom one, Carr's just barely above it, and Dobbs isn't that far off. When you get to the Elias stats, the QBR and the ratings and the completion percentage, Dobbs has the better QBR, but when it comes to rating, Derek Carr is just a little bit above. So they're relatively equal, even though most of the green dots are on the right side under Carr. So it should be interesting to see. And Clifford said, yeah, 23rd with the Arizona offense. That says something, because we know they stink. That team is trying to absolutely tank without saying they're tanking. They're horrible. James says, Dobbs has never had the weapons he has now. That is correct, nor has he had the coach he has now. So I'm hoping Coach O'Connell turns Dobbs, who is always considered the perennial backup, but he's played with mostly defensive guys, except for a stint in Cleveland, that this is that wonderful deal where he can step it up and become actually a good quarterback, starting quarterback. Now, my comp to him is Geno Smith, because Geno Smith sort of started out that way. Geno got a little bit more playing time early because he was a higher draft pick. But Geno was always considered, never quite got it, became a backup, blah, 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 until he went to Seattle. And suddenly now he's a quality starting quarterback. So maybe we can see that.
Interesting comp, Dave. Glad you brought that up.
Now, let's go over to our team stats. Over on the Vikings offense, we're ranked 26th power ranking wise by PFF against, we go offense versus defense, the Saints defense, which they have ranked 5th. Big difference there. DVOA has us at 16th. We dropped a couple spots. 12th in pass, 28th in the run versus 9th and overall on the defense of the Saints. 9th versus the pass. They've got a very good secondary, and 17th against the run. When we get to Elias, it's a lot more even. They have the Vikings at 8th overall on offense. 8th, people. Top 10. 8th. Versus the 7th ranked defense, yards-wise. Passing, we're 2nd still. Now, you got to remember, that includes all the quarterbacks we played so far this season. Mostly Kirk Cousins. A wee bit of Jaron Hall and Dobbs. They're 7th against the pass total. We're 29th in rushing, and that actually went up a couple spots. Thanks to Josh Dobbs being able to run, I believe. And they're 17th against rushing. When it comes to points, we've moved up. We're now to 13th in points on offense, and they are 7th in points against. So they've got a quality defense. When it comes to sacks, we've taken a grand total of 22 over the season. They are 27th in the league and only getting 17. The boys from the Dome Patrol said our quarterback's going to have an easy time and not worry about sacks because their pass rush absolutely is putrid. I like hearing that from the enemy. Good job. When it comes to giveaways, we are still close to the bottom. We're 31st. We've given away 17, but we are staying steady right now to -5 differential. Would love to get on the plus side of that, and hopefully this Sunday we'll work towards that. Whereas on takeaways, they are first. They've taken away 18 turnovers. Forced fumbles, interceptions, whatever. They are very attacking and going for the ball type of defense. The over and under is 41, and the Saints are favored by 3 in our house.
Well, we're 1-3 at home, Dave.
Now, when we flip the script, Vikings defense is ranked 17th. It went up versus their offense, which is ranked 18th. Per PFF, when we get to DVOA, DVOA has our defense at 10th. Stuck at 10th. We were 10th last week as well. Our pass is 13th against the pass and 10th against the rush. It wasn't that way at the beginning of the season, folks. Our defense is getting better. They're 19th on offense overall, 20th in their passing game, and 14th in their running game. When we get to the Elias Sports Bureau stats, we are down, dropped a couple spots to 15th in total yards, 18th in passing, 12th in rushing, 17th in points against. This is for the defense. So middle of the package. We're 14th in sacks with 24 that the defense has gotten. Would like to see that number climb, hoping Danielle Hunter has a fantastic day, along with DJ Wanham or anybody else who wants to get sacks. Get tons
Join the
of them.
party. Join the party.
Yep. And we're 17th in takeaways with 17. Now, if you remember from the last slide, Saints were first with takeaways with 18. We are 17th with 12, 6 behind. So we want to up that just a bit. That means a little bit more than one a game. Let's get a couple poppers more than the other team, and we'll quickly, hopefully, catch up to them. Now, their offense is ranked 13th in yards, 10th in passing, 18th in rushing, 15th in points. They've taken 21 sacks. Their giveaways, they've turned the ball over 10 times. However, they're sitting with a +8 differential because their defense takes the ball away. So it's, to me, on paper, when you look at those numbers, we're relatively even quality-wise. When you mash all those together, we're real close. Almost the same team. You know, obviously we have a little strengths in a few areas. They have a little strengths in others. But basically, we're really close. I wouldn't have given them that much of a favorite, but hey, Vegas doesn't like, change. And we've got a new quarterback, so that's change. Yep. When we get to special teams, the Vikings ranked 30th overall, which was the same thing they were last week, meaning they're bad for the most part. But I told you I'd get into the stats to show where our problem is. The Saints are 13th. Now, the stats are there. When it comes to field goals and extra points, reminder, 0 is average. 0 is that 16.5 ranking. 0 is average. There, when we get to field goals and extra points, Joseph is a -7.2. That ranks, it's tied for 30th and 31st. There's one kicker tied with him and one kicker worse than him. Well, the green dot's obviously over on the Saints side. But don't worry too much about the Saints kicker. Joseph's tied for 30th. Saints kicker is 29th. Just one spot above. Now, where we start to get into the difference is the kickoff, which we're barely below average. Kick return, we're just right at average, -0.1. We're punting a little bit above at 0.6. And punt returners a little bit below average. Now, when I remember looking at the Saints, their punting game is a lot better than ours. And that's what brings up their score. Their return game is not that much better than ours. It is better, but it's not that much better. And actually, everything is real close. It's just most special teams are close. It's just that we're just barely under on a lot of these categories. The only one we own is we've got a better kick return game. And we're still under average. Theirs is horrible. So, well, that's when it comes to special teams. That's where we can take some advantage tomorrow, and hopefully we do. And that, folks, we don't have a weather forecast because we're playing indoors, is your slideshow for today. Hopefully you did not go blind through all of that.
Yeah, so we'll switch into a bit of go from the slides and just talk a bit about the game and some of the things to look for. I think I just want to start things off by, it's been almost a week, but just want to give props to Josh Dobbs on what he did in Atlanta on Sunday. I was going to kind of go into and talk a bit about, his ball placement was a bit poor. But I was watching some really nitpicky stuff, but I watched quite a few podcasts this week that are done by former NFL players, and right. They were just amazed at the way that Josh Dobbs performed in that game when he didn't know what the hell was going on, didn't know any of the players, hadn't thrown to anybody, and they just said, over and over, the main thing was like, if you don't play the game, you don't realize how hard of a don't realize how hard it was for Josh Dobbs to play like he did with what he had. And like, it's just bananas that what happened there, Dave, for our offense to get the most points it had all season. And, you didn't have Justin Jefferson. You don't have your best offensive player. You don't have your best offensive lineman. You lose KJ Osborne early in the game. You lose Cam Akers late in the game. Like, it just bananas again that Josh Dobbs could do what he did with what he had. So, hats off to him. Amazing performance. You got to give him credit and the whole team for what they did, and that cannot be forgotten. But now, you got to do it again and again and again, right?
Again and again.
Yeah, like the Vikings are 5-4. They're in a playoff position right now. But if they don't get competent quarterback play over the next 8 games, they are quickly going to be out of playoff position. And it's right now, Dobbs is your starting quarterback, and he's got to provide that competent play. And all the love that he's been getting, it's not going to. Viking fans are not going to forget what Josh Dobbs did last weekend in Atlanta. Incredible performance. But the warm and fuzzies are going to end quickly if he follows that up with a couple of not so good games and the Vikings lose the next 2 or 3, right? Again, you got to keep on stacking the wins. You got to win. You got to keep on playing well. And so how are the Vikings going to do that? I was watching one of those podcasts I'm talking about, Dave, this week. Let's look at it. I was looking at the O-line committee, it's called. It's got Phil Mackey, and former Vikings offensive lineman Jeremiah Searles and Alex Boone are on that. Great podcast. You should check it out if you're a Vikings fan or just a football fan in general. It's funny, very informative.
And it comes in podcast or /YouTube. Now, you can listen to the podcast, but some of them, they do film breakdown, which you're going to want to see on YouTube. Yeah. But they are very, very good. Yes.
But Boone and Searles were saying that, like, Dobbs is not a guy that like the Vikings offense is with Kirk Cousins' traditional drop back pass, in the shotgun, and Kirk is going to throw. He's never going to run. That is not Josh Dobbs' strength. Like, the Vikings offense going forward, I don't think is not going to be a traditional drop back offense. And Boones and Searles were saying that after this game, Kevin O'Connell, they're figuring he's probably looking at film from the Philadelphia Eagles offense, film from the Baltimore Ravens offense, and to see how you can bring in some of those run pass option, tactics and concepts into the Vikings offense now with Josh Dobbs, because Dobbs is a dual threat guy. You saw it with all the runs on Sunday, like the third and whatever, where he escaped and got a first down on a 3rd and 16. Was now and then the touchdown run should have been a touchdown pass to TJ Hawkinson, but we will forgive that when you end up getting
when you make it up by running it in yourself. Yes.
He got another first down on a 1st and 10, escape trouble. The 4th and 7, that incredible scramble to keep the game alive for the Vikings. Those are the things that we have not seen from a Vikings quarterback probably since Dante Culpepper's first couple of years with the Vikings. We have not had
his running style was different.
Yeah.
Dante was, I'm a quarterback that's bigger than your linebacker. I'm going to run through you type deal, which was fine. It worked great. Get your roll on, baby.
Yeah, but this is something that defenses now have to account for. Kirk Cousins, I think he's run 10 times this year for like 18 yards. 8 of those 10 have been like basically sneaks. He's never going to run. It's not a threat. Defenses don't have to account for it. You've got to account for this now with Josh Dobbs, and that needs to be incorporated into the offense, because just having Dobbs drop back and pass, although he's got a good arm, he can make some nice throws. We saw that Sunday. It's not – the Vikings offense needs to take advantage of his mobility. And I think that you're going to see that. You saw it a little bit in the second half later in the game. There was more RPO, I think, than we've seen in the past 2 years with Cousins. And that makes sense with Dobbs. So play to his strengths. That's what good coaches do. And I think that's what you got to see tomorrow against the Saints. Give the Saints an offense, a Vikings offense that they have not seen before, and play to Dobbs' strengths, because I think just having him go back and pass 40 times like we do with Cousins, it's not going to work. Right. And New Orleans, you talked about it. They've got some good players. They've got the best cornerback you never heard of, Paulson Adebo. He's got 4
and Paulson Adebo is going to cause Jordan has some grief.
Some heartburn. He is. That guy's got 11 pass defenses in 9 games. You don't see that sometimes for a whole season for a lot of cornerbacks. So he's playing lights out. Actually, Marshawn Lattimore, who's like the bigger name, is the guy you can pick on in the Saints secondary, I think. So they got him. Demario Davis, one of the best linebackers in the NFL. They got Cam Jordan. He's all still a force. Kyle Grandison, opposite of him, is having a really strong year. So they got some good players. But they have really struggled against mobile quarterbacks. Tyson Bagent, who you wouldn't think, the Bears threw all kinds of RPO stuff last week. Tyson Bagent ran for over 60 yards. They had a real hard time stopping that, the Saints defense. If the Bears hadn't thrown 3 interceptions and fumbled the ball once, they probably would have won that game in New Orleans. So keep that in mind. Trevor Lawrence ran over them for over 70 yards. So you've got Josh Dobbs. He is the 3rd leading quarterback as far as rushing yardage. He's only behind Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. So he can run the ball. Again, use that in the game. And I think you're going to see that, and we've got to use that. We can't do the traditional pass, because we don't have Kirk Cousins. So that's going to be key.
When I went on Dome Patrol, they're deathly afraid of Dobbs because the Saints don't do running quarterbacks at all. The Saints like to turn their back on the quarterback and not worry about the quarterback running. They would love to have Kirk Cousins back there for the mere fact that they don't have to worry about him running. And then the defensive backs pay attention to the wide receivers. Well, if you've got a threat to run, that messes things up. That means wide receivers tend to get open because the cornerback's doing a peek back to see where the quarterback is. And even if they're doing that, is it enough time to stop a running quarterback? See, like you said, T-Bag, Tyson Bagent, had his way with him, and it caused them a lot of consternation, even though they had 5 turnovers on defense, 5 takeaways. The running almost allowed the Chicago Bears, and we're talking the Chicago Bears, to win. And that they're terrified. The broadcasters, the podcasters like us, that Dobbs can run.
That's the offensive side of things. I think, and what the Vikings potentially you could see doing tomorrow. I do wonder. We still, last week the whole thing where we found out after the game that basically Dobbs did not know what he was doing out there. Like Kevin O'Connell speaking in his ear, telling him the plays. And even though he's a smart guy, and he did what he did, and that was 5 days ago. Now we're a week into it, but it's still, he's only been on the team basically 11 days. How well does he know the playbook, Dave? And somebody mentioned that below. No. He doesn't know it very well. So I'm wondering if that's going to catch up to us tomorrow. That whole lack of familiarity with the playbook and maybe limiting what we can do, and how quickly can you get the RPO concepts in there and get them drilled down and working well when you've only been doing it for 3 days. I think they have to do that, but how well it's going to go, I don't know. Hopefully better as the year goes on, but maybe we're going to see some growing pains tomorrow. We'll see. I think on the other side of the ball, offensively with New Orleans, hey, Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are still on the team. They generally have killed the Vikings over the years, but this isn't the 2017 or even 2020 Michael Thomas or Alvin Kamara, and Thomas might even not play tomorrow if he's behind bars. But Thomas right now, even if he plays, he's a secondary target to Chris Olave. Alvin Kamara is catching a ton of passes, but what I've seen, Dave, is that he doesn't look as elusive and as slippery as he used to. He's not gone down
he's aging
off the ledge, but he's getting there. But still, they do things. Thomas and Kamara can still be effective. Jamal Williams is still there, kind of a battering ram running back who spells Kamara. Chris Olave, I really like him as a receiver. They got Rashid Shaheed, who's a real fast, big play, deep threat at wide receiver. And then they got the annoying Taysom Hill. He's the most annoying, I think, overhyped, overrated NFL player in the past 10 years. Jack of all trades, but 2 of his plays generally are not game-changing. Like,
I heard his age this week, and I didn't think he was that old.
He's 33. Yeah.
He's 33 years old and still kicking it. Good for
Yeah.
him.
However, the Saints offense has been riding the Taysom Hill train lately. Like they're using him a lot on kind of short to medium yardage situations. And even though I feel like it's the same play all the time, Dave, Hill's got a running back next to him, fakes the handoff, guard pulls, he follows the guard. 6-7 yards later, he gets tackled. Maybe like it's been very successful. But I think it's all about with that kind of play is basically ignore the pass threat from Taysom Hill, keep in your gaps, tackle well, get off your blocks. And I think that the Vikings do that well under Brian Flores this year. So maybe they'll eliminate the Taysom Hill factor a bit. Derek Carr has been playing well, especially the past 4 games, got the most passing yards of any NFL quarterback the past 4 games. And he's a guy that he can get in a rhythm. Now, last week, Flores threw us for a bit of a loop, and I think Atlanta too. Like you were talking about it. I saw a lot of 3-man pass rushes, way more than I've seen all year from the Vikings. And I think Brian Flores kind of felt like, hey, I'm facing Taylor Heineke. I'm going to let him, he's not going to be able to consistently execute and complete pass after pass after pass after pass in the game. I'm going to rush 3, drop 8, and he's going to screw it up. And he did eventually. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. I don't think that works as well with Derek Carr. If Carr gets in a rhythm, and that I think he enjoys having time to survey the field. If the clock doesn't get sped up in his head by pass rushers, I think that he could pick apart our defense a bit. So I expect I'm interested to see how Brian Flores attacks Carr at quarterback, but I think you're going to see quite a bit more pressure and blitzing than we saw the previous week. Than we saw against Taylor Heineke and Atlanta. But a tough task for the Vikings defense there because I think New Orleans is they're a team that could be good. And they've got an offense, I think, that's got a diverse set of assets, weapons, and you've got to be ready for that. So, tough game tomorrow. I think the Vikings haven't been very good at home. I think really a lot of it, Dave, is, again, how Dobbs plays and ball security. Like Drew Bunting, who's not here today, but he made a great point on Vikings Report last week. He was talking about how Dobbs has had trouble with fumbles basically since college. And you saw it again last week. A couple loose with the ball. I think he holds it like with one hand a little bit too much, kind of loosey-goosey. But I think that can be coached. Like you can get coaching to emphasize, hey, when you get in tight quarters, maybe have 2 hands on the ball, Josh, so it doesn't get slapped out of your hands so easily. But you can't have 3 fumbles like he did last week, 2 recovered by the
and Drew is 100% correct. He's carrying the ball like a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
I talked about it earlier in the week too. He's carrying the ball like a loaf of bread. He needs to hug it and caress it and make sure that he, fosters it and loves it and he keeps it close to himself. That's how you carry that football. You lock it in. And, if it's holding it up high because you need to hold it up high, that's fine. Then you can come back and drop it. Or if he's going to a pass, he's got both hands on the ball as he's coming back this way. So it's less likely to be batted out. I want to say hi. I'm behind on remarks. Rap has popped in. Appreciate that, Rap. And I will look at my messages from you. That should be fun. I got a little thing going with Rap right now, and hopefully he's found what he's looking for. I do want to thank everybody who's joined us today. It's pretty good, cool to see you all here. There was one response or one tweet I highlighted. I want to go back to real quick, not tweet, but remark. Sean, Dave, can you tell us how to be a supporter? Yes, I can. There are 2 ways to support the channel. One, you can, besides the free stuff always, like, subscribe, ring the bell, get notifications. That doesn't cost you a penny, but it helps us so very much with the algorithm. And it gets notified, hopefully on time, unlike for app, that the show is on. And you guys get to see it. Because we have regular shows, yes. We have not only 2 old bloggers with the great and wonderful Darren over there with, all that experience analyzing Vikings football, but we also have Tyler Fornes and the Real Forno Show on Mondays and Wednesdays. We also have a few other shows that pop up, and we have a membership program. All you got to do is hit the join button. If you go to the Vikings First and SKOL's overall page on YouTube, you should be able to see a join button. It's especially easy on a computer, but it's supposed to be there on a phone as well. If you don't like that, our super chats are open. We don't advertise it, but our super chats are open. And you can always do it that way. You can contact me on Vikings First and SKOL or Tyler Fornes as well. We also have emails and all that sort of stuff. You can find me. I generally do not keep my Twitter DMs open unless you message me first, and then I'll let you in. If we're already friends, you can hit me up anytime. I also reside over on Facebook. And those are all the different ways you can support us presently. And, hey, it's good. We love for you too. We love having you here. We love growing the audience, love being part of the Vikings community, making, hopefully your fandom all that much better. Now that I've gone off that tangent, let's finish up there, Darren. What else about this game you want to go over?
That's about it. I think, really, if we can get finally a game where we don't turn the ball over once, that's going to go a long way, I think, to the Vikings going from 4 wins in a row to 5, and going from 5-4 to 6-4, and getting even a better pole position with the playoffs spot. That's and Dobbs. There you see him. Look how he's holding the ball, Dave.
Yeah, it illustrated it perfect, like a loaf of bread.
Yeah,
I think not the way you want to carry a football.
And I even saw, like, on his touchdown run, there was a few visuals showing, again, same thing. He's holding it low with his hand on it like this. Get it? Like, again, loaf of bread. That really concerns me. But again, I think coaching, KLC hopefully is getting to him, talking to him about better ball security, maybe a different way to hold the ball. You don't want to be like limiting his explosiveness and doing things that gets him thinking too much when he starts to run. But again, 3 fumbles in a game from your quarterback is 3 too many. And and when you're playing against a team like New Orleans, who I think, again, might be a little bit better than the record shows, or any team really, you just can't be giving them killing your offensive drives and giving them extra offensive drives.
Just because you hold the ball like a loaf of bread, yes.
Chuck Foreman, like Darren says, indeed, yeah. The Chuckster made it work, but not too many people can.
Now, we're at the end of the show. Yogi put up here that he's giving the Kirk Cousins plaque giveaway tonight, y'all. Ooh. Go to Purple Rain 247 and watch Yogi. He does a great job on his channel of what he does. And we like to support our fellow creators out there. And Yogi does a fantastic job at what he does as well. And another former lineman in the deal. So, I love Yogi on that. Sean, thank you for the $9.99 supercharge. You absolutely rock. You get the Gallahorn. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Also, before you go, tomorrow you have Justin Day, who's a member of Vikings First and SKOL. He had a show come out this morning. I highly encourage you to go listen to it. Podcast only. But he has a show talking about this last week and into the game. Go check it out. He will be on approximately, what is it? He comes around 11:10, 11:15-ish in the morning with the last and final updates. He'll go over who's in, who's out for the team, and he'll get you ready and primed for kickoff. He's going to be asking you what you're drinking and what sort of food you're doing, because he's a foodie and he likes his game day food. And we love Justin. So go check that out tomorrow right before the game. He's live on his page, YouTube page, Purple and Gold for Days. And then, as always, what is this, Darren? The one you're supposed to be on.
Yeah, I haven't made it. I've made it in comments. Yeah, before just at the 2-minute warning of every game, you can join Dave and a lot of times Justin and Jonas from Germany, where they'll talk you through the last couple of minutes of the game. You can talk about how things are going. Hopefully they're going good for the Vikings. And then after the game, you can talk with the boys, give your comments, thoughts on the Vikings game.
Yep, we watched the last 2 minutes with you all, and we're the only ones to do that. Everybody waits till the game's over, or 30 minutes after the game, or an hour after the game to do their post-game reaction. We react with you. So come and join us tomorrow for that, live at the 2-minute warning. It's easy to remember because we literally go live at the 2-minute warning. Piece of cake, right?
So calm and cool and collected last week when in those last minutes. I was very, very surprised with it because that was not a game ending that one could be calm, cool, and collected if you were a Vikings fan.
Well, last week was a blast because I was sitting there calling, hey, Josh Dobbs takes the snap, rolls right, blah, 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 and calling it. And all the meantime, interacting with people like Aaron or people in the group that were talking to me. Raymond was there and everybody was there. And we're talking as we're going, and it's like, and we're driving down the field to go ahead. And it was like, yes, we love it. It was great. And I highly encourage you to do that because we do that all the time. We go live at the 2-minute warning. And if perchance the Saints guys were talking about that, he goes, watch this game turn out to be a tie. I said, if it's tie, because I invited them to come on. And they said, Dave, if we're up by 10, I'll come on. One of them said, I'll come on. I said, nah, you come on anyways. And they go, oh, watch it be a tie. I said, then you definitely need to come on because we're live through that whole extra period if you do that. So we have a blast.
It is a lot of fun. Encourage people to check it out.
Now, I don't know, because a different camera I was using, you didn't notice what's on my shirt. It says, don't give in to the war within in veteran suicide. My charities I support, because I am myself a veteran that has dealt with PTSD issues, are Dysfunctional Veterans and Here Till Valhalla Project. It means a lot to me. Today is Veterans Day, as we talked at the very beginning, Armistice Day or Remembrance Day. And it doesn't matter which war, everybody that has served and been a part of it, and it doesn't have to be on the front lines. You don't have to be a door kicker or a tunnel rat during Vietnam or whatever. You have memories from it. You could be back in garrison and deal with stuff. I know folks that dealt on the nuclear side because I worked with them that deal with stuff. And it's a big deal. You don't want to let your friends and family that have done this get away. You talked about your relative who liked to talk about the good things. And a lot of vets do. It's the bad things that we tend to shut up and shut down and put a wall around. But if you know anybody that's struggling, make sure you talk to them. Send them to me. Just telling war stories between each other is a great therapy. But hopefully we don't have to deal with that. Everybody's having a great day. Enjoy. If you're barbecuing out today, I don't know why it's, one of those things that you can do. Or if you're enjoying football, enjoy with friends, and always remember those that did serve. Raise one up, drink it down for them. It's a good thing. So,
where Anthony is, he can do barbecuing because he's in Florida.
Well, I'm here in Texas, and it's cool today. We're only in the 50s, mid 50s, so, Fahrenheit, obviously. Cool and damp, but that's it. Here in the warehouse, yes, Aaron, that is the Vikings bar here downtown Austin, South Side. It is a wonderful place to view the game. Been there once, had a great time. And why he's saying that is that's where he wants to meet up at one point in time. And we need to schedule that, buddy. We need to schedule that, buddy. First got to Texas, chance of Cowboys suck. Yeah, you got that. All right, everybody. That's it. Any last words there, Darren?
One interesting stat, and I'll leave it at that, is that Josh Dobbs throws to his tight ends just over 30% of the time
Really?
in this season. And guess how often he threw to TJ Hawkinson against the Falcons?
Yes, a little over 30% of the time.
Over 30% of the time. So pretty important that TJ plays tomorrow. And TJ this week said, "I'll be in there unless the doctors tell me, I am
the difference between a tight end and a wide receiver. They're tougher.
I'll be playing unless they take me, they don't let me play." So TJ Hawkinson, been an important part of this offense all year anyway, but even more so maybe now with Josh Dobbs as their starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Very could be. What do we say?
We say SKOL Vikings, and thanks to your service veterans out there today.
Mm-hmm. My brothers and sisters in the arms, I salute you. SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!